Hello and welcome to Behind the Bearcat. This is the podcast where the Northwest Missouri State University Career Services Office chats with Northwest faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends to hear about their career journeys, how they got to where they are, and how they became Bearcats. I'm Northwest Career Services Assistant Director Travis Klein.
And I'm Hannah Christian, the Director of Career Services here at Northwest. And today's guest on our podcast is.
I am Rebecca Lobina. I am the Director of Continuing Professional Education and the Director of the Missouri Small Business Development Center for Northwest.
That might be a
Welcome.
record title.
That's a title and a half. So it's a fold-out business card. Yeah.
That's right.
Welcome, Rebecca. So, since you have such an amazing title, maybe you could explain what you do, because that's like two sort of separate director titles.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I've done the longest with Northwest for the last 15 years is the Director of the Missouri Small Business Development Center. So small business development centers are across the nation. They are funded in part by a grant from the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and then their matching funds come from a host university. And so my host university is Northwest Missouri State. And the reason they are matched funds from a university is because my job is to work with small business owners to help educate them to be more successful in their business. And so it makes sense that we're matched with higher education. And then on the other side of my job is the continuing professional education. And this is much newer for me as well as for Northwest. We now have this Center for Professional Development, and within that center, we've only had this department or center for about 3 or 4 years now. And what we're doing is working to offer, well, it's in the name, continuing education, right? But really, what it is the non-credit side of the world. So when you think of going out there in the professional world and you have your degree, but you may also need a certification, or a certification may just be something that you want because it, puts you a step ahead of the others that are applying for jobs. And so I help people on that side of the world also to get ahead.
So, okay, so two sort of very complementary sort of roles, right? Um, you talked about small business development being kind of the first aspect of that. Can you share with us how you found that opportunity, or how you got into why you were interested in helping small businesses from this sort of perspective?
Sure. Um, that's a good question. And so, what actually happened was in my early career and my undergrad degree, both were in exercise science. And so I was originally a registered clinical exercise physiologist. I worked at KU Med, did that for roughly 7 years. Um, had my baby girl, who is now 16. Once I had her, though, I was living in St. Joseph and traveling back and forth from KU to St. Joe. I didn't like that anymore with my little girl. That was 2 hours of the day I was missing, right? And so moving to Kansas City wasn't an option at the time. And so I looked for a job up here. Well, part of my background also is that I have owned a couple of small businesses in the past. Computer repair was one of them. Another one was it was called Go St. Joe Kids, and it was all online, and it was just information that parents like myself could find in order to know what's going on in the community, since I wasn't originally from the community. A lot of times when you're plugged into the community, you know exactly what's going on, where to go. But when you're not from there, it's a little different and more difficult. So anyhow, having had that background of working myself in small businesses, when this opportunity came about to be to the director that had been the director of the Small Business Development Center for Northwest for years went away. He moved to Texas, I believe. So I I applied. I was like, this is perfect, because my daughter was only like 4 or 5 months old, and it was here in St. Joseph where I live. That's where the office was located for the Small Business Development Center. And then I interviewed, and then later found out that after I got the job, they told me that the reason that they hired me, um, uh, compared to the other candidates, was because when it came down to like the last three of us, they said, which one of these people are most approachable, from like someone on the streets, if they had to ask questions, who would be less intimidating? And that was me. And so that's why ultimately I got the job, because I am not intimidating.
Here's what I say. That is a great story, because I tell people all the time, you have no idea what that hiring manager is thinking. And they have some very strange criteria for making their decisions sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
you just
never would
never
have known
know.
that. Yeah.
Before we go there, so this is interesting. I didn't know about the exercise physiology piece. Can you back up a little bit and tell us a little bit about that? Because that's something that is super fascinating. And I don't think we've ever had anybody on here who could kind of tell us, did you want to do that like from an early age? And what type of work was that? And kind of give us a little bit of the benefit of that hidden experience.
Sure. So, yes, I did want to do that. Like I said, I did get an undergrad degree, and it actually went into that field. But like a lot of people, didn't, you end up you never know where you're going to end up and what you're going to end up doing. But I did love that job. I truly did. I liked working in healthcare. I liked helping people. If you've ever heard of a exercise stress test, a cardiac stress test, where they hook you up to a EKG and you run on a treadmill, or sometimes they just give you a drug that mimics you running on a treadmill. That would have been me, that was making you run on the treadmill and watching your EKG, and making sure nothing bad happens. And so that was my job. And I loved my job. It was great. I got to meet all kinds of different people, and help prevent them from having heart attacks by finding, blockages through that test that they had done. And so I really did like it. But what I found out later is that in the healthcare field, um, if you want to work your way up, no matter where you're at, um, they want you to have an RN degree, a nursing degree. And I didn't have a nursing degree. My degree was more specific and technical. It was like a niche field. And so while I enjoyed it, I actually ended up going back to school and getting my master's to try to kind of leapfrog, if you will, to move up. And I did eventually make supervisor, but that was like over like the EKG techs and the Holter monitor techs, and some other stuff. But I was never going to go any higher than that. And so that bothered me too.
What
But
degree did
I
you?
still miss that world. The one thing I don't miss about that world is that in my field now, nobody dies ever.
Mhm.
It is not part of my job. And so I never had anybody die on me, but I do tell this story all the time. Like, I went on vacation, 2 different times that I went on vacation, somebody flatlined while doing the stress test, and I was not there.
Precious.
I'm
Oh
like,
my goodness.
Yeah.
see, that does not happen when when you're just consulting with business owners. So
This is also a high point of our job. People rarely
Mhm.
die during the
Yeah.
process of looking for
yes,
work. So,
there's silver lining you didn't know was there.
can you tell us? This is so fascinating to me. Can you tell us what skills and maybe things that you learned in that role that maybe transferred over to make you be successful in the role that you're in now?
Yeah. Um, the probably the most important one, and that is easily recognizable, is just communication with different individuals. So I am by nature a introvert. I'm quiet, fairly shy, but with that position that I was in early in my career, I mean, I'm right there in your face and like, take your shirt off. I got to put EKGs, I mean, you have to be, well, you just have to understand that I'm going to do that, and you're going to sweat, and I'm going to take your blood pressure while you're running, and and I had to create this rapport with the person so that they had at least some trust in what I was doing, that I knew what I was doing, and
And that rapport creating is essentially what got you the job, right? Because it
as
caused
it
you to
turns
not be
out,
intimidating, right?
yes,
Oh,
yes, yes, exactly. And who knew? I didn't know I was building those skills. Also working with a large number of different people. So you work in healthcare. In my job anyway, I worked with the ultrasound techs directly, and with like the nuclear techs. And then I also worked with the nurses. Um, and then I worked, of course, with doctors. And then I worked with like office staff. And so I worked with all these different kinds of people daily, and having to liaison between like the patient and the echo tech and the doctor. And it was just I was building skills, communication skills that I didn't even know I was doing at the time, but looking back I can see that I it definitely helped me. and
You
now and
mentioned
now I work with people of all different groups and all different ages, just like I did before. And I can easily communicate with them and hopefully make them feel at ease as well before they open up their life to me about their businesses and what they're doing and what's going wrong.
you mentioned owning a couple businesses or kind of running a couple businesses. How did you get into that? Because that seems, you're doing the stress tests and stuff within your major, and then you get your master's, but then you own a computer repair business. So how did that?
You've heard of like side gigs. Well,
Mhm.
I did side gigs before they were called side gigs. So I always even in college. So way back when I went to college, I actually ended up getting my certification through the American College of Sports Medicine for exercise physiology. So I did that. I think the first one was an exercise specialist, and then it's like a ranking, and then you move up. So I did that while I was still in college. I actually went to Dallas, Texas to get that certification, and took like a week-long boot camp kind of thing, and took the test and stuff. And then while I was in college, the little entrepreneur bug was in me. And so I was a personal trainer for a few individuals. And so I would go to their house. They would have like, these were well to do individuals who had like their own gym and stuff inside their house. And so I would go there and give them exercise plans and work as a personal trainer with them. So that was really my first experience as, having a business, but I never did do anything official. Like I didn't register the business or get a business license or anything like that. I was just kind of doing it on the side. And then eventually, you get married, and then my husband was into computers and stuff. And so we started our own business doing that. And I did like all the back office stuff and the QuickBooks, and I'm still like a great with QuickBooks to this day because I did so much with QuickBooks back then. So, I got to see, I got to really see firsthand what it was like to start the official business, to run it, to do the bookkeeping on it, taxes on it, working with the city, and it was very eye opening, all the different aspects that come about with being an entrepreneur. So that's kind of how I got into that role.
Mhm.
which maps directly to then helping business owners, right? So I, give us sort of like, I know your days are varied, but give us sort of like an overview of what it looks like to be an advisor. Do you meet with people where they are? Do they come to you? What kind of help? Like, what's the most requested help that they ask for?
Sure.
Like
So
FAQs.
yeah, yeah. Um, so first, I can come to them. They can come to my office, or we can do it like this. We can do it via Zoom. So I love the fact that more and more people know what Zoom is, so that, that they feel comfortable using it now. So that helps a lot with my day to day because there's a lot less travel now involved, going to and from. So that's how we can meet. And then I can even meet with them on the telephone if they really just can't do any other way. And I've done that before. I have an 8 to 5 office, but I meet in the evenings and sometimes weekends as well. if they really just can't do 8 to 5 because they have their day job, that they can't get out of too. And then a typical or some of the FAQs that I get, number one is just anyone who's getting started in business. They're like, where do I start? Like, I know I'm supposed to get a business license, but like, I've heard about this LLC thing, and do I need to get an attorney, and how much is it going to cost me? And, I'm going to sell this and this, and I'm going to sell in, all over the country. How does sales tax work? So they have all of those, what I call standard questions. And so I answer all of those questions, help them with all that stuff. I can help them with filing their LLC with the Secretary of State. I can help them steer clear of scams related to like grants or other things that get sent to them. As soon as you like file for your LLC or something, every single person gets like at least two things in the mail that are solicitations that they don't have to have. One is a certificate of good standing. And if you do need it, you can get it for like just a few bucks from the state yourself. But the solicitation is like, we'll get it for you for $85. I'm like, I'm sure you will, but they don't need it. So anyway, and so those are on the startup side of things. And on the other side, the most frequently asked question, still talking about the business development, the other things that get asked a lot have to do with financing. So how do I get a business loan? What's the criteria? How do you help me? Do you give out money? I don't give out money. Are there grants available? If so, how can I get them? Where do I look for them? Those kinds of things. Those are the real typical things. And then those people who are already in business, if they're not looking for financing, generally they're asking questions about marketing strategies, and I help them with that.
That's
Well,
an
I would
interesting three category sort of like
absolutely.
that's kind of nice, like three buckets. And it's sort of the same thing with our roles. We kind of fill the same need for our customers. Go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say, and I think probably just like us, you probably work with a lot of partners. So like I think
Yes,
last season had Josh McKim with NCED on here,
yes,
and we've
I'm on his
had,
board.
yeah, folks with the Regional Council of Governments. We had Kim Mildward, who I know is a listener. So hi, Kim.
Oh,
So, I know that those sort of folks, they work with you, because
they
sometimes they have
do.
those resources they're working for. So who are some of those other key partners or that you work with? Because obviously you
Right.
don't exist in a vacuum, just like we don't.
I don't. You're right. And I'm sorry about I keep waving off. There's a gnat that's bugging me. Um, so yes, I know Kim, I know Josh, and we have official resource partners through the small business development centers across the nation as well. We have used to be called PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. They have recently changed names to Apex. I don't know why, but they changed names. So, um, so anyone who wants to do contracting with the government, we send them to that specialist. Anyone who wants to do international trade, specifically exporting, we have international trade specialists as one of our resource partners, and so we know who to send them to for that. And then MU Extension, the Extension Office, is also a resource partner for us. MU Extension holds our grant, which sounds weird since I get paid from Northwest, right? But each state has to have someone who holds the main SBDC grant, and MU Extension actually holds it for the state of Missouri. And so we just bill them to get our money back, kind of thing, for the grant. So they just do the administrative side of stuff, but they are definitely a good resource partner. And then many of these partners I work with for both sides of my job. So like Kim Mildward, you mentioned in particular with the Regional Council of Governments. So her office and the Missouri Career Centers, Job Centers, they have funding for people to go to school, like WIOA funding, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act funding. And we accept that funding for roughly 30 or so of our programs that are non-credit, that lead to certifications, that still lead to very good jobs, very high-paying jobs, without the need for the degree, at least. I always encourage people to get degrees, always, always.
So this is a great segue though. Could you tell us like what some of those programs are? Like if somebody's listening
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know this opportunity existed." Like what types of programs are those?
Right. So one is digital marketing. So there's two main groups that give certifications out for digital marketing. One is the American Marketing Association, AMA, not the American Medical Association. And then the other one is the DMI, the Digital Marketing Institute, which is recognized globally. And so one of our certifications actually gives you the dual certification with both AMI and DMI. And so what I say is, like, people who want to prove that they can do what they say they can do, that certification is the way to go for that, right? Because then you have evidence that you put together a portfolio, or you have passed a test or whatever that shows that you actually know what you're talking about. And so I think all of those things pair well with a degree. Another one is in the IT world. So information technology, pretty much most people that are going to hire anyone that's related to that field are going to want to see a certification. They love degrees as well, but the certification proves that you can do more than just theory. You can actually, show that you've done some stuff. We have one in particular program that's very thorough, and it's called, it's for Python developers. So that's a type of code. And that's as far as I know about that, because that is not my world. But what I can tell you is that, those jobs that are out there pay, like, on average about $85,000 a year for a Python developer. And so anyone who's interested in that, they can take, this is a 6-month course that you would take. Does not lead to a degree, but it does build your portfolio during those 6 months to prove that you've done projects, to show your work. So similar to what you might see in like a design class or something, where you would show your designs. More and more people are want to see those types of portfolios for different industries now, including the IT world. So, and then digital marketing is another one where they like to see those portfolios, and our courses provide that for them, along with the certifications.
So, what are some of the things, small businesses, it's really difficult to start a small business. And I know there's that, classic kind of chestnut that a majority of them kind of fail within the first year. So what are some things that they can do to make sure that they stay
Only if you're a
successful?
restaurant, Travis.
Okay.
Only if you don't work with me. That's what I
Yeah,
would
that's
say.
right. Yeah. So what can they do to
Work with
not be
me.
a
Yeah,
statistic?
my
Yeah.
job is to make you successful.
Call
Right.
Rebecca.
So what was the question now?
Well, what are some of the things they can do to make sure that they are successful? So that, some of the things that, if you're thinking about, if there's a listener out there thinking about starting a business, like, what are some things that they should be, outside of the normal stuff that you have to do when you start, but what are some things that maybe people miss frequently that helps make sure that they are successful and that they continue on?
Right. So, planning. Planning is one, and executing on the plan. So you hear I don't remember whose quote it is, but failing to plan is planning to fail.
Mhm.
It's so true. You'd be surprised how many people are want to open a business because they're really good at XYZ, right? They are good at making this widget, or they love fixing computers or whatever, or they're great at baking brownies, whatever the case is. But what they fail to do is actually plan and really dig into their market and find out if there's a need for that, if or a want for that, or if they can create that want or need. And so and they don't want to put together a business plan. That seems to really put people off. But it's those who really dig down and put pen to paper, or fingers to a typewriter, whatever, up to a keyboard. And those are the ones that are going to do better, because when you take the time to put a business plan together, you're making yourself accountable. And that's the one thing that you don't have when you start a business, is accountability, because it's just you, right? Usually. And so who are you accountable to? But if you create a plan, you have some timelines and milestones in there, and you have things written out that say, here's what I plan to do with marketing. Here's what I plan to do with XYZ. And if you don't do that, it gets sidetracked, and you get so busy working in your business that you don't work on your business. And the one thing beyond just planning has to do with marketing. If there is, if you build it, they will come. That is what
Mhm.
every entrepreneur believes. I'm going to open this coffee shop and everybody's going to love it because it's good, and everybody's going
Mhm.
to come. But it never works out that way for them.
Because nobody
So
knows about the coffee shop,
Mhm.
right?
yes, they can't go to a place they don't know about, right? And they may not even want to stop, even if it's new and they see it, because they're like, you know, why
Mhm.
would I stop? So I talk people through that process of like, just think of yourself and what you would do, and how you hear about different products or services. And you're going to have to put some money towards that. It is extremely rare for word of mouth or only social media, which are both free, to be the be all end all and make a business successful. And I say it's extremely rare because it does happen, but it's very rare. Generally speaking, lots of money gets put towards marketing in order to get the word out, be top of mind, build a following, retain customers. Marketing is good for all of those things, and people really don't want to put any money towards that. Usually they're bootstrapping it when they first get started, and so they low on funds, and that's the one thing that gets wiped, and it's a killer. It will kill your business if you don't put money and effort towards marketing.
Hmm, good to know.
Mhm.
We talk about marketing to pivot a little bit yourself, right? That's what writing a resume, cover letter, networking is.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about? I know you've had a few roles, right? You've at least been an exercise physiologist and a director of the SBDC. Can you kind of talk through, especially from that marketing perspective, how you can use those sort of like insights to help someone be able to maybe market themselves for a role? You talked about it in terms of like credentials, but maybe a little bit more on the side of like, if I'm a person who's looking to get a job, what types of things can do, from your perspective, do you think people can do to make themselves to market themselves better?
Yeah. So one thing is that's kind of that's growing now in popularity are digital credentials. So like digital badges, you see those on LinkedIn. Having a LinkedIn profile, I would first, you got to have a profile, right? So I would definitely recommend for students to have a LinkedIn profile, and try to get as many connections as they can while they're in college, and actual real world work experience. That helps a lot on a resume, especially when you're first getting started. Um, because I hear the frustration all the time. And I remember I had it as well. I had work experience. Like I started working when I was 15 and just kept working, right? But then you get out of college and they're like, well, we want you to have experience in this.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to either figure out how you can translate what you did into the skills that they need, and show that somehow on your resume. Um, or you have to have some of that experience yourself. So internships are very, very important for that purpose, whether they're paid or not. They're very good if they're in the industry you're trying to break into. That gives you the real world experience, which also gives you a leg up to get in the door. And sometimes those internships turn into actual jobs.
I'm
So
also, yeah, yeah. So also, you mentioned personal training, right? You got your certification.
yes,
Honestly, side hustles are a great way to get experience. And
Mhm.
I think
yes, they
students
are.
don't take enough advantage of that. I
Yeah,
mean, if you're running your own business, you quickly find out, you quickly find out where your weaknesses are. You find out where you're weak. Oh, well, my phone's ringing. You might have to
Mhm.
cut that out, Travis.
That's okay.
yeah. I found out that like soliciting clients for me, it was very difficult because I'm not uh, to this day I am not a salesperson or anything. So they had to know someone who knew someone, which is why I only had a few clients, right? Because like I said, now that I'm more experienced, I understand like I wasn't marketing. It was just like if you heard about me and you were interested because so and so said that I was doing a good job with them, great. But that's a very slow way to build a business, and it's fine if you have no overhead and you're in college. but uh, but it's not okay if it's a business you're trying to scale.
Great insight. Great,
Mhm.
great transferable insight from one
Yes.
side to the other. You have any other questions, Travis?
No, I mean, I think that covers. It's very interesting talking to somebody who helps support people to build up their businesses because I think, people think they have great ideas all the time, and then how do you translate that? So I think, just like you said, the way you said about planning, like that's seems like such an essential part, but I think it does get lost a lot of times that, it's like
Mhm.
I'm really good at this, but that's not enough. You have to like think it through and talk to somebody and get help. So I think how can people get a hold of you if maybe they have this great idea or they've had, this thought in the back of their mind that, hey, I'd like to start this business. I make great widgets. How do I sell them? How can they get
Yeah.
a hold of you if they want to do that?
Yeah. So they can call my office directly, 816-364-4105. Or you got my name here, Rebecca Lobina. They can email me, which is just my last name, lobina@nwmissouri.edu. Either of those will get you directly to me. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. Um, let's see here, but yeah, just reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk with anyone and help them. And a lot of clients I have, long-term clients that just reach out from time to time as they have questions, as they've grown their business more and more. And those are always fun, because you get to see the growth, and you know that you help just a tiny bit with that.
Yeah, you different phases of business,
Mhm.
different problems, right? So as you
That's
grow, you're
right.
going to have new problems that Rebecca can help you with. So
That's right.
that was
More money, more
amazing.
problems.
That's right. Thank you so
Excellent.
much for being on the podcast. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will do it for another episode of Behind the Bearcat, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to give us a thumbs up below. That helps out. Also, if you've not done so yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Also, we'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find Behind the Bearcat on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Plus, the audio podcast comes out on Fridays on all the major podcast platforms. Thanks again for watching Behind the Bearcat, and as always, we'll talk to you next time.